In today's episode, I want to share with you what creative work actually requires. And I hope you stay till the end. I want to tell you about 3 writers I know. Each one of them has something real. And what I mean by real is that each of them works at something that they care about. But none of them, at least not yet, is making work that actually reaches people. The first has genuine craft. Their sentences are considerate, precise, and are shaped with real care. But nothing ever leaves the folder. There are no habits of finishing, no systems for revision, and no process for getting the work out. It accumulates in private files, but reaches no one. The second writer publishes constantly. The schedule is consistent, the output is clean, the process is technically accomplished. But something in their work is absent. You can feel the competence, you can sense the vacancy behind it. The language is there, but they're lacking the voice. I'll tell you about the difference later. The third writer shows up and feels deeply, but the craft is not there yet. What they're trying to express does not land. And it's not because they're not sincere with their work, but sincerity alone cannot do the work or form. They're lacking form. So all 3 have 2 of the 3 things that a piece of work requires, but none of them makes work that actually reaches people. So when creative work fails, we tend to assume that we are missing one particular thing. More creativity, we need to be more authentic, we need to be more disciplined. So we strengthen what we think we lack and we call it growth. But the problem is that there are 3 distinct elements at play, and you cannot compensate for the absence of one by doubling down on the other. And I want to tell you what those things are. So I believe that creativity is the language, emotion is the voice, and productivity is the megaphone. Through this essay, I'll walk you through those things. And take one of those away and the work is short. And those 2 things cannot fix it. So let's start by creativity. Creativity is the language, it is the craft, it is the technique that you're going to need. And what I mean by technique is that it is how you structure a story. It is how you compose an image, how you arrange an argument so that it moves rather than just informs. Creativity is learnable, contrary to what other people think. I think you can learn to be more creative. But it is a gift, and the reason why most people underestimate it. And if you have important things to say, but have not yet learned how sentences carry weight, you'll struggle. It's not a lack of feeling, because you're feeling things, but a lack of tools. And those tools that you need to express basically how you're feeling. So, well, this means that your work can be really sincere, but still fall flat. And it's not because what you said was wrong, but because of the form you use it to say those things. So the form could not hold what you had to share. So that's the first one when it comes to creativity. The second one is that emotion is the voice. It is what makes the work distinctly yours. It is your perspective. It is your particular way of seeing things. Is what you notice, what that others walk past, what you care about when no one's watching. This is where AI falls short, because AI cannot replicate your voice, because that's your perspective. You have a way you see things that AI trained on general knowledge cannot see. You cannot borrow it, and you cannot manufacture it. It comes with the way you have lived, basically. And it comes from that willing to access what you actually experience, rather than to think that you should experience, or what you think your audience wants to experience. Are you tapping into you or the expectation of the world, basically? Let me give you an example. So, a photographer can take technically flawless images, right? Perfect exposure, perfect composition, but they still produce work that looks like no one in particular made it, you see? They got the writing, the exposure, the composition, rules of thirds, those technicalities were good, which means that's not a craft problem, but there's the absence of the specific perspective. There's the gravity that's lacking, which would make them, oh, this is different from other photographers' work, basically. So that is what I mean by the element of them having different perspective, basically. So emotion is not just sentimentality, basically. It is not just a vulnerability that is performed for an audience. That's what most people think. No, it's the thing underneath the work that gives it a reason to exist. Why am I creating this video? Why do I write a newsletter? The newsletter is called The Wisdomers, but why do I write it? Why do you post what you post? Why do you do the creative work? That's what matters. That's the emotion part. So the third element is productivity, which is the megaphone. It is the unglamorous work of finishing, the habits, the systems, the consistent movement from conception to completion to the wall. So without it, language and voice remain potential energy because you're not putting them out there. And the creator with 20 half-finished pieces is not lacking ideas or emotional depth. They're lacking the structure that's going to turn internal richness into something that can be encountered by another person. So, and this is where it becomes even more important because there is a version of this that you feel like, oh, this is simple, I can do it. But watch how many genuine talented people spend years producing work that never really gets to see the light of day. And it's not because they don't care, but because finishing is its own skill and they have not built it. This is me creating videos. I know videos is not my medium, but this is a skill that I'm developing. I'm learning to create videos, to put things into a video form. But at my core, I prefer the written word. I prefer writing. So you cannot expect from me the best video editing that you could ever see on YouTube. But the idea that I'm working on this skill, and it's better to build this skill than to just ignore it. And most people overview the element that comes naturally to them and dismiss the others. I don't want to dismiss creating in a video form because it's not natural to me. It's crafts. I want to learn. So if crafts comes easily, emotion can start to seem like something that should be simply be present, and finishing feels like petition. The work becomes clever and cold because it's not coming within your natural medium, basically. And the idea is that you need to be better at that and better at learning the things that you're not good at. Another example, if feeling deeply is your natural mode, some people are very introspective, but technical study is really hard and systems can feel like betray on how you love tapping into your creative form. You're going to have work that is sincere, that is really introspective, but you won't be able to communicate it as you should. And the idea is that you should be able to learn how to communicate better. And if you're a disciplined person and you're someone who shows up every day, you really have the habit of doing things in the right way, but you have an ungovernable part of the creative work that maybe it's hard for you. And you have to also work on that because you can make a lot of work, but will be very low hanging for the. It's very productive, but your work is forgettable. No one is going to remember what you actually said. And I love writing when he wrote to a young poet, and he described that good work as that which arises out of necessity. And I want you to mind the difference between necessity and urgency. It was not urgency in the schedule sense, but the irresistible pressure of a particular experience demanding a particular expression. So you have that thing that is really going to ask you to create it. That's very important. So that is what gives the voice its character, basically. And necessity without craft is just urgency. Some people do create a lot of things in an agency mode. But with agency without a system to channel it, it doesn't really help. You end up with just bad work, basically. So let's come back to those three elements. Each element taken alone produces a recognizable kind of failure, because if you take craft without emotion, you produce that work that is correct, but forgettable. If you take emotion without craft, you produce work that is sincere, but doesn't make any, it's formless, basically. And if you take productivity without any emotional craft, that means you produce volume that accumulates but disappears. There won't be any dose of keywords that's going to shape someone. So from the outside, this is seen differently. So the work looks different, but the result is the same. The result is the same, that does not reach who you want it to reach. And what is harder to accept is the three elements do not compensate for one another, but they require one another. So let me explain. So craft without emotion becomes arbitrary. Basically, you make skilled choices, but there's no animating principles behind them. No reason this image rather than that one. No reason you take this sentence rather than the other. The work is technically defensible and you can pretend that it's good, but it is really inert. It doesn't have any of that core elements of what you want. Emotion without craft becomes formless intensity. You had something real to express, but the expression collapses under its own weight, unable to communicate what it carries. And productivity without the other two is simply efficiency applied in the wrong direction. You're running fast, but where are you running to? So, when all three are present, something different happens. The craft shapes the emotion into a form someone else can enter. The emotions gives the craft something worth expressing. And the systems of finishing ensures the work actually exists in a world where it can be encountered rather than imagined. And there's a different gap between work that lives inside a person and work that lives in the world. So, all those three elements are what close that gap, basically. How you express what is inside of you, the world. And one question I'm going to give you is not which one of these you have, it's which one you have been avoiding to work on. So building craft when you already have a voice can feel fast like a betrayal. I'm learning technique that, I don't feel comfortable with this. It's my work I'm not being true to my work. So developing a voice when you already have craft feels like a risk. Like you're losing something you have worked hard to control. And building systems when you have both can feel reductive, although you're organizing the work, which might diminish the value of it, to be honest. So the goal we're going to look at is that the version of you that refuses to do what costs you most is the version that keeps producing 2/3 of what you're capable of. And the experienced creator does not settle for the elements we were born with. They work on all three, and they pay particular attention to the one that asks the most of them, and that is the work. Let me tell you, I'm doing video not because it's my preferred medium, but I'm learning to be productive in this. And that's all for me today. If this essay landed somewhere, share it with someone, a creative person or someone who's mid-project, who are stuck maybe. And this is not to tell them what they should be working on. I believe if you watch till the end, you know why you're falling short. You know what you need to work on. I wrote a version of this in my essay on thewisdommaster.com, which you can read now. I hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you very much. Bye.